Welcome to the BXG podcast, a BXG production. I am one of your hosts, the Alpha Donut guy, Brenton Beswick, alongside my co-host, Gregory T. Filson. And the T is for Daredevil.
The T is for Daredevil. That's
It's a
correct. There's a
silent T.
silent T.
All
Yeah.
right, Greg, how are you this week?
I'm doing okay. It was another long week. I'm starting to think just long weeks are just that's the way it is now. Which is fine. And tomorrow back at we're recording differently this week. Just things happen. So when you listen to this, I'll be in the middle, hopefully, if you're listening to this, I'll be in the middle of a teacher in service day with Catholic school teaching. So I don't even know what we're doing. I just know that I have to sit there for 4 hours. So I am excited. The kids are like, Mr. Filson, what are you doing with your 3-day weekend? It's like, you have a 3-day weekend. I have to come to school on Monday. So they were bummed out for me, which was funny. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed how bummed they were. But, it'll still be another long week. I would rather just teach. I'd rather just have a day where I teach them instead of watching a video for 4 hours because this all just sets me back. So if we don't all have the day off, then I'd rather just teach. But other than that, okay, just playoff baseball, a lot of football. It was a good weekend for sports if you're a sports person. And
Yeah,
yesterday was a big thing for that. What about you, Brenton? How are you?
feeling great about the guards, obviously.
Yeah, that's great. Terrific.
Yeah, great pitching. Not a lot on the other side.
Oh,
But defense wins championships. We are a little late. I had some stuff and we got pushed back. Not just this episode got pushed back, but also we had planned to have a gamescast, our first gamescast with Charles out last week as well. We did record that, but I'm going to hold that until the middle of this coming week. So if you're hearing this on Monday, in a couple of days, there will be a gamescast episode. I have a question for you as a teacher. Like, how do you handle, like, is there like a Columbus Day
there
thing?
is California doesn't have Columbus Day. They do Indigenous People Day, and they don't take a day off for it. So did Alaska. Alaska, we got Indigenous Peoples Days off
Is
at
it the
my job at
same
the library. It's
day?
the same day. It's the same day.
Okay.
So they don't. Yeah. So the students get tomorrow off as an in-service day for teachers, but there's no
Right.
actual day off. Janie doesn't have it off. She got a day off last week. Um, and it was just supposed to cover like Jewish holidays, Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, there's Jewish holidays in October too.
It just seems like that's just like eh
Well,
Jewish
what it is,
holidays.
it's one of those things where like some Jewish people do not take their time off. And so this gives them at least a day where they can like take their time off. Some, Jewish people will take off their entire time, as they should. It is in their religious right to do so. But they just did that as like, I think the biggest thing is like, I think any job, and I have fully, I felt this ever since I've had it, like the newspaper job, I just never stopped. So I can't even, I won't even say I thought this, but any other job I've ever had, everyone should have like an extra day off a month than you
Yeah.
would normally get. I think, if like, so I think, just a good example is like during December when we have Christmas off, you should get like one floating holiday that whole month because, especially if you work in retail, it sucks tremendously. And it's like everyone gets that opportunity. So every day, everyone's just going to have to work a little harder. And yeah, it sucks. But then you can be like, well, I'm going to make myself have a 3-day weekend. I can just get away from this mess. Um, and I'm sure there are people out there who'll be like, well, blah, 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 blah about this whole thing in business. You've never run a business. No, I haven't. I haven't run a business, but I have worked many different jobs. And that morale boost when you get that unexpected day off
Mm.
is pretty incredible. So just to come back a little bit more refreshed is a big thing. But that's it. I mean, that we just do Indigenous people. I think most of the western part of the United States does that now. No Columbus Day, Indigenous people. I know Washington does it, Oregon, California, I believe Colorado.
I don't have a problem with that being a day, but
Uh,
make it a different day.
Well, they just don't want to acknowledge Christopher Columbus.
They don't want to acknowledge Christopher Columbus.
Right.
That's dumb to me.
Well, he didn't actually find America, technically.
Who cares?
I'm just going into the technical aspects of it. And also,
we don't. Who knows?
Who knows what anything is? I just think we should just make it a day off. It's called middle of October. You just get that day off.
I just, personally, I don't know.
You can call whatever you want. If you're celebrating Columbus, good on you. If you're celebrating Indigenous people, awesome. If you're celebrating that you got hammered on Sunday from watching football and you just need a break, perfect. That's why the day after the Super Bowl should be all.
Do you think Christopher Columbus was racist?
I think everyone was probably racist.
I don't think he was.
I was like,
you want to know
racist.
Why?
Sure.
Because he didn't know there was any other races.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, and the thing is, like, I should say it's this racism where we don't know. Like, you just don't know that you're being racist. You don't know this thing.
It's just like,
well,
is it racism or is it ignorance?
It's ignorance.
Because I think those are two different things.
There. We can, and maybe we could have like a
deep dive on Christopher Columbus.
Well, not even like whole deep dive, just the idea of all this kind of thing. It's, you and I have had discussions about wokeness, and we both hate that word and term a lot.
I don't think we should celebrate Christopher Columbus because he was racist. It's like he didn't think that we were he just showed up.
He got paid by Portugal to travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
he was a medieval truck driver. Okay.
Yeah. Essentially.
He just showed up and there were people here. He didn't know that 300 years later we were going to lace blankets with smallpox and give them to them.
Yeah. He probably he probably was like, I have a holiday.
Yeah.
He's like, that's crazy. He was like, I was rife with syphilis and I have a holiday. I just assume everyone back then was just right. I also just saying that.
Well, you got to watch it when you're on those nautical. You got to watch for scurvy.
Like, my big thing was Ben Franklin was just always rife with syphilis and lived forever. That's like and he like acknowledged it. I'm a big fan of like Franklin in like the writings were like, I was consumed by syphilis. Yeah, I was consumed by syphilis, but here I am with more women. I'm a big Franklin doesn't care that he has syphilis. Let me just keep passing it on.
Hey, you got a dose.
I just think it just makes me a little sad that we don't call it we call it Lou Gehrig's disease. We should call syphilis Franklin's disease.
Ben Franklin's disease.
BFD.
Oh my.
You got a case of BFD.
There's a lot of taverns named after him.
There are a lot of taverns. I've been to a few Ben Franklin taverns.
Yeah.
I
was thinking about this today. I was like,
you're a world scholar.
They canceled Christopher Columbus. The guy's been dead for 500 years. It's madness.
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus was a racist because he gave
this is the thing I will say is that in California and Alaska, the two states that I lived in where they do call it indigenous people, it is very well known how poorly they treated people.
Sure. Well, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm totally fine with there being an indigenous people day. They probably should be like a whole fucking week with the horror that we wrought on these folks.
Yeah.
But at a minimum a week. It's probably a whole month. Give them the whole fucking year.
Let's give it a month off. No, I like the idea of just let's do another day just so get our day off.
Yeah, holiday. You know when we
That'd
put
be sick.
August, worst month of the year.
Well, yeah, I don't get that day off though. But August is the worst month of the year. Isn't it funny? Like I think all of us agree. Though we have talked about, but I think that's the thing. It's that unless you have your birthday in August, I still think you probably think is the worst month of the year.
Yeah, it sucks. Horrible.
It's either
horrible month.
Yeah.
Nothing good about it.
Everywhere.
Before we get into our reviews, two things of note. We have tried to get into the habit of pre-recording the episodes of the Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. If you want to see those, they go live on YouTube in the middle of the week. But being that this is later than anticipated, those episodes in this episode of the podcast will be a week behind. Like a full week behind on both of them. There's already a new episode of each as we're recording. So if you're looking for Rings of Power 6, I think. Is it 6?
7.
Well, the new one was 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're looking for 7 of Rings of Power and House of Dragons,
sorry,
next week, but
right.
This week's will be 6, and they are just kind of pasted into the end. Second thing of note is that I believe the people who prefer boneless chicken wings are monsters.
Sure. Yeah, that's
you're just eating a special chicken nugget. That's it.
I would rather have a chicken nugget than a boneless chicken wing.
Right.
So I'd say less
it's
special.
not a wing. It's not a wing, it's a chicken nugget.
You gotta have the bone in, because that's where the flavor comes from.
The bone in. Sorry.
Have the bone in. That's right. It's crazy to me. That whole
I don't even know why that's an option. Bone in, bone out.
You
boneless.
Can't. Sorry, you're gonna eat around the bone. Sorry, you got to eat flavor.
Right. Exactly. People don't understand. The bone's what makes it taste good.
Right. That's why you always order the bone-in ribeye. Get that, and it's better.
You got to have the bone. You know.
Got to have the bone. Full bone.
Full bone. Whole way in. Whole way in.
Yep.
Monsters. It's like, I want a buffalo. Can I get a buffalo chicken boneless chicken wing? Oh, you mean you want a chicken nugget slathered in hot sauce? You get that,
but
from
not
Sam's
as
Club.
Good as a nugget. But not as good as a nugget.
When I was in college, at Clarion, there was the 2 options. I think this is probably the case with a lot of schools. There was the 2 options. You had like the quick serve, kind of like burgers, sandwiches, chicken sandwiches, pizza, whatever. And then there was like the buffet style dining hall. And a lot of times on like Thursdays, for lunch, you'd have chicken nuggets. And then Fridays, you would have General Tso's chicken. It was just the leftover chicken nuggets slathered in soy sauce or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
Sweet and sour sauce, whatever they put on General Tso's.
That was it. That's what you do.
Yeah.
You gotta make up for it.
Andor. Episode 5, the Axe forgets being a team player does not come naturally to Cassian. It's weird that like that's his name, like Cassian Andor, but Andor. Does not come naturally to Cassian, but the daring mission to infiltrate an Imperial garrison requires it of him. It's weird the way that was written. The operation has been in the planning stages for months, or what feels like months after this episode. As the newest member of the mission, Cassian must overcome the prudent distrust of his teammates, particularly one very hypersensitive Chicagoite who his day job is in a greasy spoon. Yeah. Skeen is the character's name. And he at one point does kind of sneak up behind him and take his kyber crystal, and that's when Andor has to divulge he's being paid for this. And we kind of see that Luthen's character is having a lot of doubts and might be having buyer's remorse when it comes to Andor. But what did you think of this episode?
I like to find it felt like it was a build-up episode. It felt like we had a really solid last episode, and this was we need to build things up. Still really well acted. Still looked very cool. But yeah, it was just a build-up episode. And it's not like those are bad episodes, because you do need that. You do need those episodes to help you bridge the gap. And we're not halfway through, or about halfway through at this point, right? I believe. And
Let me peep that.
but either way, it's just one of those things where like you need to bridge the gap from one kind of event to the other, and you can't have every episode be like major event, major event, major event. And so I thought this was just a really, for being a build-up episode, and a lot of the different shows that we've watched, this is definitely one of the better ones where like it felt like things were still at play and things still mattered, even though it was mostly just like saying, this is what we need to do next. This is what's happening next. Not really any action, but also just good. It honestly felt like that, middle 15-20 minutes of a movie, and they just stretched it out to a 30-minute episode of television, or it's like 35, I think. It was just that little thing where like we're just building a little bit of tension, and I thought the building of tension was really good. I do really like Skeen. I think like he's a really great addition to something like this, where he is kind of like, there's something, maybe it's just from watching The Bear. That's exactly what it's like, skeeny, and it's just like weird how that works. And so I really like that, and I think it really showed off Diego Luna's like acting chops too, because you really do kind of like understand more about him in this episode, where he's talking about what it's cool. I think the thing that just works really well for this show, and we've mentioned this before, is how he just doesn't really have an allegiance. And right. and it just, it's very, the two best shows that have come after, or the two best things that have happened after in so many years in Star Wars, you can even say the last three movies, like those included, is The Mandalorian and Andor. And those are both people who are on the line. They play no allegiance to anything. They're just like, right. I'm doing this because I need to do this because I just want to survive. And there's something cool about that, because I think it sounds weird, but it's like, it's almost more relatable, because it's hard to think of yourself as being like Darth Vader, and it's also hard to think of yourself as being Luke Skywalker. And to find some people in the middle, they're just like, hey, I just need to get by. Like, I just got to pay my, it literally looks at the thing as like, you know what? I just got to get rent in this week. Landlord's on me. And this is what Andor feels like. I honestly feel like Cassian's like, there's gonna be like one thing where he's like, cable's due, man. Like, I gotta do this job for that. And it feels like that. And we got that from Rogue One. We definitely had that kind of idea from that, because that whole movie's kind of that in between, until you see Darth Vader just go crazy, and it's awesome. The best scene in Star Wars, and since the 80s.
Oh, my knee popped.
I mean, but yeah, I just thought this was a good build-up episode. It leaves you wanting more, but that's the point, because we have more episodes. So what did you think?
Yeah, 12 episodes, and I
okay,
think,
so we are at the middle. Okay.
Yeah, I think episode or season 2 has already been said that that's gonna happen, because it's he's credited on IMDb. I was just trying to see what else he's been in real quick, but he's credited for 24 episodes on IMDb of this show, so that may mean that the second season's already been purchased or whatever. I mean, this was, I would say, from a purely action standpoint, this was a fairly boring episode. Mm-hmm. But I do think, I don't know if boring is the right word, but it seems like the tension, it's like building tension. And we start to kind of see where the plan's going, and these different things. And they explain the plan for stealing the payroll. Again, I think that that's hilarious, because every other time that someone's stealing something in Star Wars, it's like, we're stealing the Death Star plans, or we're stealing like barrier entry codes to get down to the forest moon in Endor. We're stealing this or that, and it's just like, we're gonna steal the payroll. It's like they're Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid or something.
So great.
But it's building the tension, and I did like this episode from the standpoint of we did get a little bit of Skeen's backstory and kind of see that they were, the hell was that? That we have like this sort of, we're not all together, but we're in this together because the Empire in some way or another has oppressed us.
Right.
And I think that's, and we were talking about it last week. I think that's something that we need. We need to see more of how the Empire has been bad, because
Right.
we don't actually get that. And we talked about, I don't
Right.
want to belay that point because we talked about it so much last week, but we're just kind of told like, hey, the Empire's bad. Trust us. They're up to no good. Just trust
They're
them.
black and red. Like,
Yeah,
that's literally it. It's black and red. And that's it.
Black, red, and white, and they're very whatever, little red cookbook in their presentation or whatever, but it's just kind of like they're bad, believe us. And I do, like, I want more of that. I want more of, this is how the Empire has made people eat shit. And I do think that this show can kind of play into that a little bit because it's set between the prequels and the original trilogy, and other than like Rebels and some of the different cartoons, which I'm just gonna say it. I know Clone Wars is great. I've heard it's great. I'm not gonna watch it. Sure, I don't have the bandwidth. And this is like, it's the Marvel. It's the Marvel problem where it's like, okay, it's all those memes like in 2055, someone from the getting into the MCU for the first time realizing they have to watch 178 series and 340 movies to get caught up. And it's like, well, I don't want that. So these cartoons that are beloved by all Clone Wars Rebels, I'm not going to watch season 2 of the Bad Batch. There's just too much Star Wars. Okay. Yeah. So let's keep it good. I'm going to watch the good stuff. I'm going to watch Andor. I'm going to watch The Mandalorian. I'm going to watch Ahsoka because I think that's going to be good too. But yeah, I'm going to watch that stuff. And I'm not saying I'm not going to watch Clone Wars because it's for kids and it's a cartoon, because I love cartoons. We're going to start reviewing a cartoon next week. But I am good on that stuff. But this is so far, this and Rogue One, and I guess Solo, are the only things that happen in that time period. And that's what I want to see more of, because I want to see just how the Empire has had their boot, everybody under the heel of their boot. And I think that getting into the backstory of each of the characters that's in this sort of motley crew would be one really cool way of exploring that. Unfortunately, what I think is probably going to happen is we got a little bit of Skeens, and obviously we know some of Cassian's backstory, but I don't know that they're going to explore that too much, because if they give us another, like next week, the week coming, it has to be the heist. You know what I mean? It has to. So we'll see how that goes, but I hope that it goes in a direction where we can continue to explore the backstories of some of these characters that gives us a sense of just how like oppressive the Empire is. With that being said, what do you think of, I think one of the more like comical, but I don't necessarily think it's supposed to be comical, side stories is Mon Mothma, or Mon, and her like husband, who just is just like, whatever, bitch, I don't care.
I mean, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I understand why they're throwing something in to give us like a little B story, but I don't really care that much, honestly. I just don't. I just like, every time that kind of happens, I don't zone out because I'm still paying attention to the show. But yeah, it just doesn't really mean that much. And the way they kind of present it, I think they kind of know that too, but they're just trying to give us a little bit of B story.
Yeah, and it's a legacy character who isn't like a huge legacy character.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like you're jamming Luke Skywalker down our throats. It's
something else.
Yeah. I think
Right.
it plays into like with when we see her versus I think later on in the series when we get Forrest Whitaker Saw Gerrera, it gives us that different feel about how the rebellion sort of is fractured in many ways, and there's this political side to it, and then Saw Gerrera's character, from everything that I've seen of Clone Wars or whatever, he's way more militant and way more
Yes.
I'm just going to do whatever I have to do to get the job done sort of thing. So it's interesting to see the juxtaposition of the different sides of the rebellion as it comes together. But that's kind of the interesting thing is like we know what Andor's fate is, but there's still plenty of time for them to tell interesting stories up until that point. So I think
Yep.
doing a second season or even beyond that makes sense.
Oh, sure. 100%. Like, this is a show I'm not at all concerned about at all. Like, I just think this show makes sense, does good storytelling, knows what it is.
Right. So next week we're hoping action packed, heisty.
Yeah, next week will be action packed. It'll be weird if it wouldn't be. Like,
thing. So
yeah.
All right. Moving on. She-Hulk. Here now is She-Hulk, episode 8.
Right? Yeah, episode 8.
Yeah, because the last one's
the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Penultimate episode.
How about that? Jen is forced to take a case defending Eugene Patilio, also known as Frogman, who claims that his suit that was made by the suit guy, what's his name? Jacobs or whatever. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Was faulty, even though he used rocket fuel when he was not supposed to. Mr. Jacobs is represented by someone we know who is a very good lawyer, Mr. Matt Murdock. Yeah. From New York, who also doubles as Daredevil. And after the fact, She-Hulk and Jen, or I'm sorry, She-Hulk is Jen. She-Hulk and Matt meet up on their other job, on their side job, as Eugene has kidnapped Mr. Jacobs, and they do their superhero thing, and that's what they do. There's cheesy lines. My butt remains thoroughly unwhooped.
Yes.
And they do their thing. And
right.
then they do their thing too.
They do their thing.
There's a lot of like, I mean, it's obviously implied, but there's a lot of implied sex in this show, which is really weird for a
well,
Disney
that's a lot of
Marvel
like
show.
Well, that's also just a lot of like lawyer shows, though.
Sure. But I didn't think that was the direction that they were going to go. But what did you think of? And then at the end, she goes to the gala and she gets, She-Hulk's a whore and she's stupid and all this. And
right, yeah. I mean, I like I thought this episode was pretty good, actually. I like Matt Murdock. It made me want to watch Daredevil. I'm not going to go back and do it, but it made me want, like there's that moment where it's like, he's cool. Like, because Daredevil is like, no offense, but I think a lot of Marvel people think he's boring. Lame. Yeah. But he makes him seem cool. I will 100% say, like, he made Daredevil seem cool. And maybe the comic books are cool. I don't know. The movie with Ben Affleck was bad. Right. I was 100%. It's bad. It's just a bad movie. I think that's the thing everyone agrees. But people really love that show. It's like a cult show. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where people get really, and people were mad about him doing this. Like there was a thing about, Daredevil fans and Daredevil TV fans were like mad about this episode. And then actually read a little bit more, and people were mad before they even watched the episode. It was like one of those things. And so that was hilarious. I thought that was really, really funny, but not surprising, but very funny. No, I mean, I thought they had like really good chemistry. It sounds like funny to think about that with like a Marvel thing, but like the chemistry was like very good. And obviously it shows up. And then I also like the humor was good enough. I like him doing his walk of shame. That was hilarious. I mean, that was funny. And then, and then at the end with like, She-Hulk's up, all that stuff. I think this show just kind of waited too long to become the show I think it should have been. I'm not saying the show's great or anything, but I really liked the last 3 episodes compared to where it was. And I think they were trying to make it too much of like, hey, we have to be Marvel and we have to do all this. And now it's like, it doesn't really feel like a Marvel show. Yes, there's superheroes or whatever, but it's her trying to be as normal as humanly possible. And then she has to be She-Hulk for some reasons, various reasons. But we also get this thing where she goes on this retreat and she finds herself that way. And then she like has a love interest who also is like a superhero, to whatever degree. He's not really a superhero. He does kind of have a superpower, I guess. I mean, he has exceptional hearing, but it's just like one of those things where like, it also has that lawyer show, like what you said, where like the sex is in there, and the law cases are in any lawyer show. The law case is always like second fiddle to whatever else is going on. It's kind of like how ER, like the medical things, were always second fiddle else, because that's why you like those shows. Because we don't, if you really wanted to make ER like a true medical show, like none of us would have any idea what's going on unless we went to medical school. And so it's all those kind of things. So I think the show is doing a lot better now than initially it was. I don't think it's a great show, but I think it's at least a good show. And it's at least something where I don't feel like I'm wasting my time and it's also short. It's like 29 minutes or something. It's like, it flies by. So it has that kind of thing going for it.
The pacing really helps because as we saw with Miss Marvel, if you stay around too long, then it's to a detriment, right? And I think that this show lasts exactly as long as it needs to on a week-to-week basis. Excuse me. I think that this is where I'm at with She-Hulk. It is better than I thought it would be, but not as good as I would want it to be.
That makes sense. Sure.
And I think that the reason there primarily is just because I disagree with you that it doesn't feel like a Marvel show. It feels very much like a Marvel show to me. There's so many like over the top cringy dialogue, and that is like the hallmark of Marvel. Like I said during the summary, my butt remains thoroughly unwhooped. It's like, oh,
I mean, that's also like those TV law shows, though.
No,
cringy dialogue.
Not like that. Not like
that. But you're combining both. That's the idea, though. It's like you're gonna have these one-liners that are like a little weird.
Yeah, but I don't think that's. I don't think that is the TV law show. I think that that's the Marvelness of
it. Probably could be. I think maybe you're right. I mean, I'm just looking at it like a little rose-colored glass.
Yeah, sure.
We're watching so much stuff.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, this adds a little bit of levity to everything else that we're watching, because
right.
House of Dragons is real heavy. Even Andor is pretty heavy. And Ring of Powers is its own thing where it's just off on the side. It's like, it's like a show that's it's like the really expensive kid that's just like at the party, just beating off in the corner.
So just doing a ton of cocaine off in the corner.
Yeah, he's just watching everybody and just cranking one out because he's just like, oh, look at how much money I have. Nobody's gonna say anything. Who cares if it's weird? It's like, well,
I paid for everything.
We all care that it's weird.
Yeah.
So just stay in your corner, Matt.
They don't care that you paid for the old hors d'oeuvres, Steve. Like,
calm down. There. Just stay out of our way with you and your hors d'oeuvres. But
where's the lords?
Oh my god. I mean, this is I think that a lot of people were eagerly anticipating this, and I think the thing that I should say eagerly anticipating the Daredevil cameo, and I think that they spoiled it the day before, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, why? Because I put a thing out like, why would you do this beforehand? Like,
what's
the point?
That suit is awful.
His suit's bad.
Terrible.
It's real.
And
bad.
I don't know how, like, I know in the Affleck thing, and also I'm pretty sure in the Netflix series, it's just the red, whatever. That suit didn't look good.
Nope.
So I think for me, it's kind of mixed reviews. I think this was maybe a little bit like too much of the cheesiness for me in this episode. But I also really found some of the moments, like you said, him doing the walk of shame in his suit was really funny. I think the thing that he's not convinced, and I don't know enough about Daredevil to know, but he's just
Right.
not convincing as a blind person. Because he seems to function
'Cause his
like, I know
hearing's so
he's got
good.
really good hearing and all this.
Right.
Like, he seems to function like he's can see anything. I don't know, but I don't know enough about Daredevil, so don't come at
right.
me.
No, I was gonna say I don't know enough about him either, but it's like he does the thing that's like bat like, but we couldn't make him Batman.
Yeah,
You
that one
know,
was taken.
right? It's like there's that thing where, but we want to make it sound cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of it. It's like that he's a bat. He's a bat.
Kind of. But he also has cool utilities.
Right. And he's a lawyer, so he's rich.
He's
we assume.
probably pretty smart.
And he's good looking. Yeah. You know.
Well, Daredevil's first appearance was in Daredevil 1, April 1964, created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett.
I had the reproduction number one of this.
Okay. That's cool. Some of his aliases are just out of control. The Scarlet Swashbuckler.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I don't like that. The Man Without Fear is pretty cool. The antagonist of this episode, Eugene Patilio, the Fabulous Frogman, first appearance, Marvel team up. I do like that they're going way into the well for some of these side characters.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Marvel team up episode issue 121, June 1982, created by J.M. DeMatteis and Carrie Gamble. I'm just going to assume that they were promptly let go after this. He's in Team Affiliations, Avengers Initiative, Action Pack, in the Misfits. I think I have the Avengers Initiative. I have the whole series in graphic novel.
Oh, nice.
Hardback. Can't remember seeing Frogman in it though.
Short looking.
Yeah. So Leapfrog or Frogman, what did you think about this guy? I'm gonna tell you exactly who you reminded me of, but you
I just didn't care. Like it was just kind of funny. I like that people like followed, like he was a leader of people. That was funny.
It was funny that they differentiated between henchmen and goons.
Yeah, that was funny. That was a cool. And honestly, it just reminded me of like the guy that's the leader of the meth lab, and not like cool like Breaking Bad, but like what like Greenville, Pennsylvania would have is like their leader of the meth lab.
Yeah,
it's like the head Grogan is for all those people in Greenville. You're not offended because you don't even know what those words mean, but
right.
Yeah.
Look
offended. Does that mean like the Steelers offense?
Oh God. He reminded me of Michael Rappaport's character in True Romance.
Oh yeah.
Where he was just like just a complete doofus.
Yep, that's a great
just
call.
A total doofus. And nothing interesting about him. He's just a doofus.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So last episode next week. Who do you think there's any possible cameos? Do you think Bruce comes back? Do you think
I would say Bruce is back? Bruce probably. They brought Bruce back in like the preview of 8, so I feel like they want to have Bruce back.
I really want to have him back, but I just don't know if he's.
I don't know. What else is Ruffalo doing?
I don't know. Doesn't he have some stuff? Doesn't he have a Showtime show or something?
Maybe.
I don't know. Do you think the Man Without Fear or the Scarlet Swashbuckler comes back.
I don't. I
No?
think this was his one appearance before we
I
do
don't
the show.
know.
But the Born Again.
Him
It'd be cool.
and
They should
Jen
bring
were.
him back. They should bring him back, but in the red outfit that he wears. That's cool.
Yeah.
In the comic books. Where he looks like
do you think that,
a devil
when they had sex, was she Jen or She Hulk?
She was Jen.
Okay. Fair enough. That's a thing. Because she was She-Hulk with the one dude.
She was She-Hulk, but he didn't care about
No, he was down with. He didn't like Jen.
He was down in the clown with Jen. Yeah.
No, he wasn't. Oh, yeah, Daredevil was.
I was just saying Matt Murdock was down in the clown with Jen. The other guy was not down
the clown. No, he was all about She-Hulk. Next episode, last episode, and then what? When's the next series?
We get a break.
Whew.
Till a movie.
Yeah.
Wakanda Forever. Can we do
that?
That's do that?
Right around the corner, huh? Can we? Did you say, are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think we're allowed.
I'm scared. We're gonna Columbus.
Nah, maybe in like 400 years.
Sick.
Yeah. All right.
They'll make a day after us,
and then take it away.
Hey, at least we'll have a day. All right.
Oh my god.
Don't die.
We're gonna skip forward. We're gonna insert here. Oh, we're gonna insert here House of Dragons, and that other Steve over here wanking it in the corner, Rings of Power.
Yeah.
And then we'll do that. Game of Thrones episode 7, House of the Dragon. The episode is called Driftmark. It takes the bulk of the episode takes place within the funeral of Damon's late wife, Lena. Is that right? Yeah, sounds right.
Lena.
No, that's Layla.
Yeah,
my guy.
I know. Lena.
Eric Clapton.
Lena. The only way we don't get sued.
I think we'll.
Because I went boom, 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 but they went boom, 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 boom. So it's different.
Right. I'm pulling up. I should have had this.
No, it's okay.
I should have.
Well, it's probably the problem you're having is it's hard to see what you're looking for, Brenton. I would say that's probably.
I saw that as a thing, but you know what? Didn't have a problem with that. If I'm being quite honest.
You were the only person that didn't.
I didn't have
apparently
any issues seeing anything. I have a nice.
I have a good TV.
4K, whatever TV, and oh my god, what is this chick's name? Lena. I had it right. All that for that.
Yeah.
Her funeral and kind of the comings and goings of the folks at the funeral, and then everybody goes to bed, and that's when bad things happen. Specifically between all the children, as young Master Aemond tames Lena's dragon. So now he's got that dragon. That dragon looked like freaking Godzilla.
It did, yeah.
That's number one. Okay. Number two, he paid the price for it. It's all fun. It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye.
Exactly.
And then it's fun that is treason. And various things and names were called and things were said and cuts were made and a wedding to end things. A wedding that didn't
ending.
A Game of Thrones wedding that didn't end in death.
Hopefully how my wedding goes. That's what I thought.
Oh, doesn't end in death.
Yeah, I don't want to end in death. I don't want to end in death.
Right. yeah, I mean, we can, discuss the details as we go, but what did you think of this episode?
Okay, so I sent you a text like when this episode, I was like, thank God. And the biggest reason was honestly like the definition of it was I found very hard to see. And I thought maybe it was a me thing because I watched a lot of this on my phone because I was watching it at school during my breaks. So I was like, it's my phone, but I do have a very good phone. So I was like, maybe not. And I watched my TV. My TV's pretty good. It's not like the best thing ever, but it's still pretty good. The black to color ratio is very good, which is the most important thing you can have in the television. And so that was difficult. That aside, that's my biggest problem. I think the drama of this episode was good. Like you said, there is, a little treason, people getting their eyes knocked out. A lot of people had facial injuries in this episode, which I enjoy because I want Game of Thrones to have people having injuries. What I didn't enjoy about this episode, and what I've started to realize about this and the other main show, is I can just click ahead those 15 seconds and not miss a damn thing of plot. And it's fine. And I'll skip 4 or 5 times and I'll be like, oh, they're still not doing anything. And that's where I have a problem, where just the length of these shows are just too much now when commercial breaks on HBO aren't a thing at all. And then, or on, Amazon. But I'm starting to realize that there's all these hour-long shows. This isn't an indictment on House of Dragon or, any of these. It's just, what are we doing here? Like, I don't need 2 minutes of people staring at each other. I just don't need it. This isn't a thing where you are paying to have this 60 minutes. This show could have been 45 minutes and had the exact same amount of content. I'm talking 45 minutes with credits and everything, had the exact same amount of content and would have been just as satisfying. The show was good with drama. I enjoyed the drama. I enjoyed the violence, and I enjoyed how the dragon, like you said, looked like Godzilla. I did hate the dragon scene, though. When he got on the dragon, I hated that scene. That was, I think it was 2 minutes and 37 seconds. That could have been a minute easy, and it would have been the same effect. So I did hate how long that was. There were a couple scenes where people were just staring at each other. So I think there's a problem now where, and not just so this show specifically, but there's just a problem where we need to just stare at each other in shows for drama when no one in real life ever stares at each other that long. And so to make this dramatic, and it makes me annoyed. And so the things that were important in this show seem less important to me because of the staring contest that people are on. I was like, who's going to blink first? And so I don't know if it's a game. I don't know if it's a House of Dragons problem. I don't know if it's all these dramatic series, but I'm starting to notice this is becoming a thing. Even in other shows I also like, where it just, there's 47 seconds of nothing happening just to set up something. It's like, so you just want this show to be an hour long for literally there's no reason that this show needs to be an hour. It can be 45 minutes and no one would care. So that's my bigger problem. I thought the drama was good. I thought the setup was fine. One of my friends that I talked to about, she said it was weird. I didn't think it was as weird as I was hoping, so that made me a little sad. But I just don't see the reason for all the unnecessary blankness of time. So I will let you go on, Brenton, with that.
Sorry.
I think I blinked first just so this would end. But
I don't. Well, I wasn't. I don't know because my camera's
yeah.
here and you're over here.
Yeah.
I thought this was the best episode of the season so far.
Okay.
The intrigue, the political intrigue was, I think, at an all-time high. The one thing that I didn't really care for, despite that praise of it being my favorite episode, I should say my favorite episode, not the best episode, because it's all kind of subjective. But I really didn't like Lord Hightower being reappointed hand. It's like, well,
yeah, that was funny to me.
I've gone 10 years with this other guy, and then he gets, killed in the fire at Harrenhal, and the realm is the realm. There's plenty of other
Right.
guys to choose from. But uh, okay, it is what it is. But I thought that the scene with the kids fighting in the dragon den was really intense, because
Oh
one
yeah,
thing that I
yeah.
will say
Those good scenes.
outside of one thing I'll say outside of like maybe Arya is that there's really not ever in a lot of these shows any imminent danger towards the kids, because I think that showing a kid on screen getting maimed in some sort of way is just a little bit like high risk. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, where if you read the book, it's a young adult novel, but it's incredibly violent, especially when you consider that these are teenagers. But when you
Mhm.
go to the movie, they utilize things to make it seem less violent. It's a lot of death off screen. There's a lot of like shaky cam, stuff like that. There's not really a lot of violence portrayed towards children characters. And so that scene had me on the edge of my seat, because I was like, somebody's going to die. Like somebody's just going to get like their throat slashed or stabbed in the neck or stabbed in the heart or the
Yes.
spleen or other organs. And then dude lost his eye. Aemon loses his
Amen.
eye. And I was like, I mean, that like, whoo, man, it was dripping and gushing and all that.
It
A
was
lot of
gross.
a lot of eye wounds this week in our different reviews.
Yeah, a lot of ones.
But that was intense. And then the scene in which the king is questioning the kids and tempers are really flaring, and she says, an eye for an eye, pick which one. He can even pick the eye.
No.
And then Sir Kristen's like, I don't really want to do this, but I guess I will. And then he has to get held back, and it's a whole thing. And then Allison stabs or slashes Rhaenyra. For something that wasn't, for an episode that wasn't like overly action packed, it was very intense. And I think that was the thing that really kind of put this episode above other episodes for me, was just the fact that it was very intense. I didn't have any issues with the darkness. I mean, the only scene that I can really remember being like at all dark was the intimate moment between Rhaenyra and Daemon on the beach. But I was like, whatever, you know.
Right.
I think
I
it's
mean, that
just
was the
it's a
scene I just
matter of how your HDR is set, and
could
like
be.
I
I
have I have settings for gaming that where like shit's really
sure.
sharp. So
Sure, yeah. I did see an article. I didn't read all of it, but like the person actually did the cinematography, like intentionally shot it dark. Uh, so that could be, it was
sure.
intentional, and I didn't get into the whole specifics of the reason. And like, I'm not even saying I was like it is a complaint of mine, just because I feel like a lot of people aren't changing their TV sets for different shows or doing different things. It was a little hard to like grasp some of what was happening. But I mean, like I said, the show had good drama. I don't know, it just didn't do. I just, like I said, there's too many moments where nothing was like, like I said, I could just fast forward and the scene didn't change. Nobody was still talking. And I think that's just, it's not necessarily their fault. It's just where TV has gone now, which is good or bad. But if look back 10 years ago with Breaking Bad or Mad Men, there wasn't a scene that you could do that to. You couldn't do 15 seconds. You might have missed something significant. And I don't get it now because there's not commercial breaks or anything. So you can just do a show in 45 minutes. So I think the biggest problem is that editors aren't editing things and making things more cohesive and more seamless. It's like reading a novel. It's like 1,300 pages and then being like, this could have been 500. There's a lot of stuff, but I don't know if a lot of it matters. But I mean, it still wasn't bad to me. I wish I could have watched a condensed version of it, like watching the NFL games on like Tuesday where they just break all the important things down. I feel like this show would have been awesome if I could have just seen it that way instead of just waiting the 2 minutes between every important thing for an hour. It was essentially what we're saying is there's 30 minutes of content that actually mattered, and 30 minutes where it's just nothing is going on except people staring at each other.
I don't know. Like, I think that's a little bit hyperbolic. There wasn't 30 minutes of
I would guess there was about 15.
I don't think that's like, there's maybe like 4. I mean,
there's a lot of dead moments.
That's your take. That's fine.
Sure.
But right. I don't think that that's accurate. Which is also,
I guess the other thing is, I don't know. I mean, this just is what shows do now, though. Like I've said, there's other shows that do this, and another show that we talk about, but other shows that I've watched where they just do this. So this might just be the thing now where they have to fill this time because they spent this and this money on it, and this is the idea. So it could be that. I don't know. The drama is good. I mean, like you said, the kids scene was awesome. Definitely the best scene in this series so far. I honestly, Brenton, I don't think it's close. I don't think it's even your opinion. I think it's definitely the best. Period. In this series.
This episode. This is what I guess, to go back to your point, is I guess I don't understand or see what you're saying in this sense, because like I was very engaged the entire show. Never picked my phone up once, so I just don't like. I mean, I guess
I didn't either. I was on my phone watching the first 50 minutes of it, and then the last 10, 11 minutes on my TV watching it. But
that's what I'm saying is I don't like, you're saying you fast forwarded or skipped ahead. I don't have a recollection of feeling like I needed to do that.
Okay, I think you and I will definitely say you and I have a different relationship with this entire series. So there's probably that too. You know, I am not saying that's good or bad either way. I'm just saying there's a different thing where, like, I think this original series is not as good as most people think because there's 3 seasons that are unwatchable, and then
there's a season and a half that's unwatchable. Well, I don't even. It's not
I'm just saying this is my personal opinion.
Sure.
I think there's 3 seasons that are personally unwatchable, and I blame George R.R. Martin 100%. I don't blame the creators. I think his lazy ass is to blame for a lot of all the stuff that we're even getting. He should just write another book and move on. So,
I think it's a shared blame. I think it's a shared blame because just from books 4 and 5, they changed a lot of things that I would not have changed, or the executive producers, D&D as they're known, kind of, there might be 2 or 3 characters here. Okay, we're going to meld them all into one. Yeah, or there's characters who died or didn't die in the books, but it's complicated, so we're just going to totally kill them off in the show. And so I honestly think that some of the things that the producers did with the show not just after they left the books, but really more towards the end of where the books was just kind of lazy. Excuse me. The first 3 seasons are incredibly close to the books, whereas after that, seasons 4, 5, and beyond get a little bit hazy. And I feel as though, like, just breaking down the last season, that season was a shortened season and it should have been longer. And because you get all this weird, like, it takes us an entire season to get from, the north to not an entire season, but it takes like 3 episodes to get from Winterfell to King's Landing. And there's this whole thing. And then in the last season, it's like, well, we need to get there. And then the next scene, they're just there. So there was like that whole thing. And, there's good aspects of those later seasons, but I just think that, yes, he should have finished the books long ago. But the reality of it is that they started to kind of take liberties with the story prior to where the books left off, and I
Sure.
think that those liberties were for the worse. But with that being said, and this is,
Yeah.
this not that. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was, for me, from stem to stern, it was high quality, and I personally don't think that there was any like down times or down moments. I mean, you can't have it be as intense as the scene with the kids and then the scene subsequent where the kids are being questioned by the king the whole time. You have to have those moments of setting things up here or setting things up there or maneuvers. What did you think about the twist where they faked Serlena's death?
I love that. I mean, I love any sort of fakery of anything like that. I thought it was well done. Like I said, I don't think this show, in the concept that I wanted it, was bad. I just didn't like that the moments of just staring or what in music playing. I thought the Lena fake death was great, really well conceived. There were some moments where they took some time to kind of get to that moment, but I just will say that, like I said, if it's condensed, I think things work better for me personally.
Okay. Excuse me. Moving forward, seems like war is imminent
Indeed.
as such with the time jumps too are really, because it seems like we're about to get not as big as the not as big as the 10-year jump, but we're going to get another jump here where basically all those kids are grown up now, and it's going to be another few years. I don't really I'm not in love with that, but I think that it serves the story because this is kind of looking at key moments in time versus just one sort of whatever.
I think the idea of jumping in time seems bad when you just say it to someone, but then you realize that like we just want the hits. So it's like listening to a band and on your like Spotify or app, and just listening to the greatest hits. Like I just want to hear what actually is like what I want to hear. Or even a band you don't necessarily like, but has good songs. It's like doing that and getting away from the frivolous thing. So I don't think it's a bad idea. It just seems weird when you hear it or see, and someone tells you it sounds weird, but I think watching it's not as bad. It was initially weird to make that jump. I will 100%
the
say
big one
that was weird.
Is still a little jarring, but now after two episodes, I'm kind of used to those characters.
Yeah, you're used to it now, right?
What you had said last week was, I think, might have been a better way to execute that, where instead of it jumping off with the younger characters and then picking up the next episode with the older characters, doing like a blended episode. I think that may have worked a little bit better.
But yeah, I think so.
It is what it is. So
yeah.
House of Dragon, Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. This show this week was a little bit more action packed with Arondir and Bronwyn luring the orcs into a different some sort of different ambushes, but then the tables were turned as they were themselves ambushed after realizing that they were fighting their own, only to be saved by the Riders of Rohan, Numenor, who came in. And I'm going to be honest with you, after that, I kind of tuned out because this show fucking sucks.
Okay. So if you had watched the
what's his name? I'm sorry, I apologize. I should say
I
should come back and say that what's his name said that he killed that he killed Sauron, the half elf orc, or Uruk. We prefer to be called Uruks.
Yeah,
is what he said. Killed Sauron allegedly.
Yeah, it just
doesn't.
If you had watched our House of Dragons thing, which I hope you had before you watched this,
Adar,
because
the name of that orc. half elf, whatever.
I said how like I had to fast forward a few seconds because like I didn't think things were happening, but it's not like nothing was things were happening. I just had to get to it. This was a show where I was fast forwarding, and literally I was like, I could just keep doing this because there were actual slow motion scenes of people not doing, not even in
Oh my god,
that
the
was the thing. It
slow
was crazy
motion.
to me. That was the crazy thing about this. It wasn't even action scenes. And so this is how, and I wrote a note and I left it at school, unfortunately, but I wrote a note saying, this is someone that had only ever experienced action movies. They're like, you have only watched Sylvester Stallone movies, you have only watched the Rambo series, and maybe you've watched like a couple other 80s action movies. Now we want you to write a script for a serious show. And they're like, cool. So I'm gonna have a bunch of stuff and then slow motion when it doesn't matter. And the plot is kind of here, but it's way back here. It's way back here. Like I know what's happening, but number one, I don't care because you've done nothing to make us interested in it because we know what happens. And that's the thing. Like we've talked about this. The writing on this show, I swear to God, if this show gets nominated for, and it may because it was spent so much money, so
anything other than makeup,
yeah. But
set
production it shouldn't even get.
designs.
It looks terrible though. It looks bad. When the volcano hit, this is the other thing I wrote. I remember it now. When the volcano, like the whole explosion, the eruption. I'm sorry, the eruption. When it hits and
Tower?
everything looks like the tower. It looks like a volcano. I'm sorry. It looked like a volcano. The tower looking like a volcano. That's what I had. Sorry. The tower looking like a volcano, erupting. That's what I meant to say. The tower
Maybe
looking like
I
a
should talk
volcano.
for a while.
No. The tower looking like a
No.
volcano erupting.
No.
No. The tower, you have to remember, I'm going back off of my notes of a show that I was like very displeased with. The tower looked like a volcano erupting. And I was like, I looked up hoping one of those embers would hit me just so I didn't have to watch the show anymore. I was like, please come
These
out of my screen and hit
characters.
me.
So I
It's
don't
so
want to
bad. But go
talk.
ahead, Brendan. Sorry.
I don't
No,
want to talk.
yeah.
I don't want to talk senseless crap. Let's put some context behind
Okay.
this.
Good. Okay. Fair enough.
A little bit of
If you
context behind
can.
this. And then I think I have a Nerdist. I might have a Nerdist thing that I would like to read you. I know how much you love.
Okay. I love Nerdist. They do all the research none of the time.
I know how much you love Nerdist stuff. Oh God, when did this show come out? It's okay. Yeah, there it is. Excuse me. I do not find a single one of the characters in this show remotely interesting. And I know that a lot of people have had an outcry because of the non-canon presentation of different races, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This doesn't have my dislike for the characters or the fact that I find them uninteresting does not matter if they are black, white, or candy stripe. They are just not interesting. None of them are interesting. There's not one like when you're watching Lord of the Rings. I know you said you're not a big fan of the Hobbit, right? The Hobbits, but there are times where when you're watching those movies and you say to yourself, "Oh, Gandalf is on screen and I like him, so I'm really going to pay attention," or I really like the relationship between Legolas and Gimli, or Aragorn's surely to do something cool, etc. There's characters where it's like, okay, that my guy is on screen. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to really focus now. But there's not any of like none of these characters. There's no one that's even remotely interesting.
No.
There's not a single character who makes me feel like I need to pay attention because this character's on screen. Like Galadriel is so overpowered in this show. She's like the best example that I can think this is that when you play a game the whole way through and level your guy up, and then you start New Game Plus and you're just this level 99 monster against like level 2 things at the very beginning of the game, and you're just rolling through them. That's what she's like. And she's like everything she made, like her character, everything is like, how do we make her look cool? Okay, we're gonna have her do these horse saddle things where she flies off, and then while she's doing that, she's gonna shoot an arrow. And it's not like she her character is probably the closest thing to an interesting character, because
Sure, right.
there is this like with her, there's this sort of she seems to have a problem with authority, which I can respect because so do I. And she has this just rage in her, but it doesn't come out like that. She comes out as being less like, I am driven by the need for revenge for my brother who was slain, and more of
Yeah.
just this sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Pretentious. She's like pretentious.
She is pretentious.
And
Yeah.
she's just like looking down on everyone. And
Well,
it kind of came out a little bit at the end of this episode where she was in the building with Adar, the half elf rock, and she almost, I was like, do it, fucking cut his head off just to
yeah,
make this
cut his head off. Yeah.
remotely
Why
interesting.
didn't she do it? That's what made me so
Because it's
mad.
Amazon.
Yeah.
It's like
This
it's
is
like the equivalent of Disney.
the
It's,
phrase of like she is the born on third base, acting like she hit a home run kind of mentality. It's like you said pretentious. I think it's the same thing. It's like she's so much better than everything else she goes against. And then the other thing is this is, and I know I'm wrong when I say this, but I was watching this and I'm like, are the Lord of the Rings movies not good? Like, did I start reflecting back because I haven't seen them in a long time? And it's like, is this young me because I didn't know any better, and like things are happening, and I'm like, oh, of course this movie's good. It looks cool, and like arrows and
no.
and all
The
that
answer to
shit.
that is
And I was like,
no.
right, and I know that it's like those movies are good, but I was like, there's this weird part of me where I was like, there was a question to myself. It's like, was I just wrong when I was younger? Now I know the answer is no, and I won't
Right.
go back and watch those because I don't have that kind of time. But it was that weird thing where like I should have never had that thought cross my mind. This show should have been at least good enough that I never would have been like, wait a minute, were the Lord of the Rings good movies, or was I just 20 years old and thought everything was good at that time? That's the
I,
problem with this show. Is like there's nothing redeeming about this show that makes me care about it. Like you said, there's no character I care about. The scenes don't matter. It was just they try and they slow mo. That's the other
oh
thing.
man. I'll
That's
tell you
crazy.
what.
Like I don't even know what they're doing.
I
Why are you
felt
doing this?
like I was watching a review to see if someone was safe at first base.
Yeah,
It
I
was
was gonna say it's
just
like, yeah, it
so
was like safe at first
much.
base, but I was gonna look at it as like we're both feet down, and they
Yeah.
need to zero in on like the white line to see if he
Yeah.
was out of
It
bounds.
was
That
rough. It was
it's
rough.
rough. It's a rough show.
And I feel like they spent 450, they almost spent a $500 million on this show. They could have done something like given that money to charity. Just give the money to charity.
Give the money
Instead
to
of making
writers.
instead of making season 2, just give the money to charity. And everybody would be
Hey,
better off for it.
if this show was $100 million and they just paid writers better, I bet it would have been better. It just, but they didn't care, and like it
I,
shows they
I
just didn't
don't
care
know. Do I have this up? Yeah. It was
because it just
written
looks
like
bad.
this episode was written by the showrunners.
No, I get that. I don't.
It's
It's
just
just.
I'm
I
like,
think their thing was just
what
like
is
it'll look cool. Who
this?
cares? Their thing was like, who cares what it costs? It'll look, or who cares if it's good? It'll look cool. but it also doesn't look cool. It looks really bad.
It is.
Most of the
They
time.
spent, when you add marketing, they spent over $1 billion on this. $1 billion on this.
It makes me mad in a lot of ways, and I won't even hit the biggest way it makes me mad, but this show sucks.
It's
and
just
honestly, I would flat out, if we weren't doing it for this podcast, it would have been out 3 episodes ago. Like,
yeah,
I would have started it.
How many
because
episodes
I like
is
Lord
this?
of the Rings.
Is this almost over?
I hope so. I mean, I do kind of like shitting on it. I will say, like, watching it and just looking for the things to shit on is kind of fun. But this show's bad.
There's 2 episodes left. Thank
the
Lord.
God, Jesus. That's how you know there's God. He ends this thing at some point. They haven't renewed it yet or anything, have they?
I believe it did get. Let me double check. Well, it had a really strong debut, and I think they were like, "Oh,
it did have a strong rating." Yeah, because literally everything has a strong debut, and then.
Well, Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, Cowboy Bebop
had a strong review, and it got canceled.
Or did didn't get renewed, but
the season 2's already started. It started production today, so. There's that. Via the Nerdist, are you ready to pull your hair out?
I mean, I need a haircut anyhow, so probably wouldn't hurt.
Is Halbrand the Rings of Power's Aragorn, or is he secretly Sauron? Put my feet up for this one. Okay. Lay on, McDuck.
I don't know what. I just like IGN, and this is how I describe it to Jamie. It's like
Nerdist?
I just imagine
not IGN
or Nerdist. I'm sorry.
Well, IGN gave this episode a 10 out of 10, so that
they gave it. I'm sorry, that's why but both of these, but Nerdist. I imagine the guy that reviews these episodes is just like pants down immediately for these. He just loves the guy, he or she. I don't know, or they. Just loves he does. This person does not care what it's about. It's just like this is somehow related to whatever. They love most of the stuff. They give it a good review even when it's bad, and by good I mean like not crappy. They refuse to crap on this. And to answer that question, neither. He's not. Either of these things.
I'll tell you what. I didn't actually have to put any thought into this. He's probably a ring wraith.
Could be a ring wraith, and
those were the men who were given the rings by Sauron.
Yeah.
So
it's when you're reaching for things like that. Obviously, I mean, my guess is you're getting paid.
By who? Well, yeah, I mean everybody gets paid. I mean,
you're getting paid by
Nerdist,
Amazon. You could be. Why wouldn't you be? You paid $1 billion on this. Why would you not throw a couple $100,000 at a company and be like, "Hey, write us not crappy reviews"?
Ooh, the ring. This is Screen Rant, which is actually even worse than Nerdist. Screen Rant is the worst.
Yeah, Screen Rant is the worst.
They might have just confirmed Halbrand is Sauron because of I don't know. I don't want to read this. So there's that. Anyway,
there's that.
I don't like this show. I don't like this show.
Well, I'm glad you and I are on the same because there was a thing where I was very skeptical before we started this. And you were.
We did the trailer. No. We did the trailer reaction. We're like, okay, that looks great.
But I mean, once we started that first episode, you and I were like, not as good on it, and then I was nervous that like it would maybe get better towards your point of view, and then not as good. But we both just think this show sucks, which makes me happy.
And I'm gonna be honest with you. I was looking at some of because it's 84 critical. And
so those people have never seen anything ever.
38 audience. And I was expecting to go into the audience and think like, okay, it's going to be a bunch of like, oh, this stupid agenda, shoving an agenda
Right,
down
right.
my throat, blah, 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 blah. But it's a lot of the same things that we say. It's like, wow, the
Yeah,
writing is really bad.
it's just bad writing. It's. I mean, I don't want to do like, but if I want to do a full on breakdown, like there's scenes where like they say stuff to each other, and they are just saying back. They're just going back and forth saying the exact same thing. It's so funny.
It's
It's
just that
so funny.
the
Like I said this, and like yes, you did say this, and I will say this, and you said this too, and this is where we're at, and
it's
that's literally
I
the
think the
writing.
problem I think the biggest problem with this show is that it's just that at times the environments look beautiful at times,
Yeah,
but when there's nothing in those environments, those cities, those villages, those fields, whatever, that make you feel literally anything, then it's wasted. And I think that that's the biggest, because there's just no interesting characters or stories or plot lines. If this show, if season 2 doesn't come out of the gate like Usain Bolt running the 100-meter dash, and it gets renewed for a third season, then you'll just know that Jeff Bezos is just like, fuck it, light the world on fire. Who
yeah,
cares? Money is just a
yeah.
thing.
And money is
$1
just the thing to him. So
billion.
yeah, imagine the people you could feed in the United States for, and I hate to get in that, but imagine what you could do instead of feeding people this crap. So
So if you agree or like our content, like, subscribe, and share. And if you don't agree, pick up a book, maybe.
also, if you don't agree, let us know why you think. I would honestly, this is, and I want to get in this, and this can be in our actual podcast when I talk about something else. I would like to know why you think this is good. I'm seriously would like to know why you think this is good.
Ring the bell. Let us know.
Ring it. Do it. Ding,
Take
ding, ding.
care. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Okay. Media recommendations. Calm down, Steve. Get out of here.
Jeez, Steve. So we started the Dahmer show on Netflix.
Ugh.
It's
Couldn't
wild.
do it. I couldn't do it.
It's wild. It's very wild. I would recommend that. You know, I'm just glad playoff baseball. The one thing, this wild card round thing is great.
It's wild.
You just do 3 games at at one stadium, and like it just feels intense. Like I have literally no dog in this fight, and I was like on the edge of my seat for 15 innings with the Guardians. And like I root for you, I honestly do. Like I root for the Guardians for you, but like I don't really care. And it was great, and it was with college football. So I'm like, anytime there's a college football break, baseball is just always on. That's the thing about
Right.
baseball. Like, there's really few commercial breaks. So it's like I'm breaking both through. I'm watching one on my phone, watching on the other. My computer, I forgot that I had with me, or I would have been doing that. Next week, I'll be better prepared during the weekend. I was watching playoff baseball during school, and one of my students came up to me and be like, "Mr. Filson, are you watching baseball?" It's like, yeah, I got done with my work for the week. And when all you are done, you can watch baseball, but we're not all done. So they like it. That it was fine. But that's it. Playoff baseball. The Dahmer series is wild. Halloween movies, just in general, and just we watch those every night. Most are bad. That's the funny thing. Most are bad.
Yeah, we'll do we're gonna do
Yeah.
a Halloween episode where we just do recent Halloween movies. We're gonna do the Monsters, Hocus Pocus, Werewolf by Night. Might as well throw that
Werewolf
in
by
there.
Night.
Might as well throw it in
Heck
there.
yeah.
And then if we can
Yep.
find Spirit Halloween, we'll do it too.
Yeah, we can do that. Not Smile though. I don't have that. Don't have that energy in me. Do you see like they're paying people to like do that in the background at games?
No. I don't like that. That's it for you. Okay. I'm just gonna take that as a yes. I watched the Dream Team documentary. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, not the
The
Dream Team,
Redeem
the
Team.
Redeem Team
The
documentary.
Redeem Team.
Yeah, too much Carlos Boozer in that for me.
I've heard it's
And
good,
then
but I haven't watched it yet.
it's okay. And then you see who is on the executive producer list, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
it's executive produced by LeBron and Dwayne Wade, and the two of them and Carmelo are the two that talk the most.
Well, sure. As long as they talk about Kobe ripping people's necks out, that's literally all I care.
Well, so it gave a really good behind the scenes.
Because Kobe's the reason why they won that thing.
Well, it gave a really good behind the scenes look, like at how he kind of became accepted with that group through like the training camp and stuff.
Yeah.
But then it also showed pretty in depth, like the 2 Spain games, and the gold medal game was close the whole way. And actually what had happened was, and this is like some revisionist history, but him and LeBron got in foul trouble early, and Dwayne Wade was the one that carried them in that game.
Yeah.
But what was funny was, well, not funny, but in the first game against Spain, he wanted to show the team just how serious he was, and this was. And he said, first play of the game, I know exactly what play they're going to run. I'm going to run straight through Pau Gasol's fucking chest. Yep. And you see, and it was brutal.
Yeah,
he put him on the ground.
Linebacker taking out a wide receiver.
It was. He put him on the ground, and it was like, he's like, I don't care if we're teammates. This is what it is. Get up.
I love Kobe.
You know what's funny is I hated him throughout his whole playing career, and the reason why was because at first he was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan, and you and I were both Jordan guys growing up. And I was like, there is no next Michael Jordan. No. And then as that kind of faded into as that kind of faded into his rivalry over who's the best in the NBA with LeBron, I'm a LeBron guy. And so I just never liked him, and I just couldn't stand. I thought he ran Shaq out of town and all this. And then I really felt like after he retired, and we started to see that different side of him, was when I actually started to appreciate him more, like looking back. And like you hear the anecdotes and stuff, you know what I mean? Of just, and it's shades of Michael, you know what I mean? Being, in the gym at 4:30 in the morning and all this. And I think that, like looking back at that whole accident and everything, I think that we were really deprived of maybe what could have been one of the better second acts of somebody's life.
Oh,
because I think he would have gone on to have a more important post playing career than his actual playing career.
Could have been. Yeah. I mean, you never know, but it definitely, Kobe has always been a top 5 favorite player of mine. I mean, like, I have always liked players like that. What?
You think he's a top 5 player all time? I think top 10. I don't think top 5.
I think he's in my personal top 5 player of all time. I don't think he's a top 5 player if I'm breaking down things.
Yeah.
I mean, but I personally think he's a top 5 player for me. But it's like one of those things where, like, I'm not a fan of like a 13-year-old kid saying that Mickey Mantle's their favorite player of all time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that thing. So it's like my personal top 5 is not obviously the top 5 ever, because my personal top 5 has Allen Iverson. And it's like, yes, Allen Iverson is not a top 5 player of all time, but I also love Allen Iverson. And we can make this for a different discussion, but I just want to, like, he's in my personal top 5. Is he a top 5 player of all time? Probably not. I would say he's probably top 8 10. Or 9.
Yeah, top 10.
I'd say he's probably 8 or 9 if we were really break it down. But I love it. I mean, I love everything he does. And it's like, as someone who personally is like someone who's felt like you had to like work much harder than everyone else just to even break even, which is always his mentality, even though he was great. I respect. I can't wait to watch it. It's one of the things I've been so busy with everything else
it
that I
moves.
just want to focus on.
It flies by.
Yeah.
And I don't think I picked my phone up the whole time. And I'm a basketball junkie. So, I watched that Tim Donaghy documentary and I was fucking riveted.
Sure.
I'm a basketball.
I watched the Detroit Pistons thing. And I was like, I don't need anything else. Give me this.
Yeah.
There's something about basketball and baseball documentaries. I don't care.
I don't really like baseball. Doesn't really do it as much for me. Baseball is my favorite sport to be a fan of because I'm a Indians Guardians fan above everything.
Right.
But basketball is my favorite sport. And like, obviously I played, but I can just watch any two teams play basketball. And I think that, and we're going way off target here, obviously, but I think the more
fine.
This is important. This is an important documentary also because it shows how like the European game started to bleed into the NBA game to the point where basically that's what it is now. Right. And I do think it's just a more aesthetically pleasing game to watch rather than like the wrestling matches of the 80s and 90s.
We don't need the one-on-one mix.
Yeah, and then like the one-on-one hero ball that you got in like the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s.
Right.
Like, but now you see the ball like I hate the Warriors because they beat the Cavs so much.
Sure.
But you also love the Warriors because when they move the ball around like that, it's just complete poetry in motion. Yep. But the BXG podcast. This is not the BXG Sportscast. Oh. That might be a thing down the line.
Could be. Why not?
Why not indeed? I am the Alphadonic Guy, Brent Bestwick, alongside my co-host Gregory T. Filson, and you can catch us every 9 a.m. 99% of the time on Fridays and 1% of the time on Mondays, Eastern Standard Time, 6 a.m. Pacific, 4 a.m. Hawaiian.
Aloha.
On all your podcast services, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, so on and so forth. Over on YouTube, a lot of good trailer reactions, folks.
A lot of good trailer
reactions. Those are exclusive over there on the YouTube channel. So check those out as well. Otherwise, stay thirsty, my friends.
Ooh.
Thanks for listening. Enjoy your week.
Thanks for watching. Weird. Enjoy your week.